So the Francis Crick Institute is a large biomedical research institution in central London. It's the merger of 3 other institutes that are already there. It will carry out discovery research with an emphasis on young researchers, giving them support and freedom to pursue their own creative ideas. And out of that discovery research will be knowledge, some of which we will be able to capture to help understand and treat a whole range of different diseases: cancer, heart disease, neurodegeneration, infection. So the principle is carrying out the highest quality research and then to have a very effective mechanism to attract, to capture that work that might be relevant to a particular disease, rather than having a top-down approach saying we're going to work on this applied problem, which is not a very effective way to do it usually. We do it the reverse way. It's certainly a very large institute. It's the largest I know under a single roof. There will be around 1,400 scientists in a single building. I don't know of a bigger one in Europe. I actually don't know of a bigger one in the world. I'm not quite sure whether it is the biggest, but we can certainly say it's one of the very largest. With respect to the Crick Institute, it was the merger of 3 pre-existing institutes that were in very old buildings that made this a practical possibility. But also we had political support across the board from politicians about the importance of biomedical research. So I personally had discussions with Gordon Brown, for example, and George Osborne, Prime Minister and Chancellor of the Exchequer, who both became very committed to this project. So it was both political support and also public support for trying to improve the health of everybody living in the UK. I think you have to treat politicians with respect. They are often highly intelligent, they are often trying to do the best for the country, and sometimes academics lecture too much politicians. So I worked on having a personal relationship and a conversation working for a common end, rather than sitting here and instructing them or lecturing them. And I think that's a much more effective way to interact with politicians. Like all academic activities, there is quite a lot of envy around, and not everybody was happy to see a brand new institute come about like this, even though there was no new money, because the money was inherited from the pre-existing institute. So it didn't require new money for operations, it did require new money for buildings, but the buildings it replaced were 50, 60, 70 years old. So it really was necessary. I'm sensing that envy is going away. Now it's seen what a magnificent achievement it is and how it will act as a beacon for British science across the world. And because we are going to attract highly skilled and creative individuals to Britain, and I hope that some of them will settle down, and then they don't stay in the Institute beyond 10 or 12 years, we will distribute them around the country if they wish to stay in the UK. So in fact the whole country will profit from this institute. The philosophy behind the Crick really is to give individuals the freedom and to express their own creativity. Sometimes if it's too top-down directed, it really leads to tired programs, because it's decided often by old men with white hair like me, and really we're not the best people to decide what should be done in the future. So my job, and the job of the other leaders at the Research Institute, are to identify and attract the most creative young researchers and give them the tools and the advice they need to be effective. Because although they're creative, they can sometimes be a little green and inexperienced. To get them through that period so that they can then release all their creativity on important problems. And that really is what our job is, to help them produce the programs that are going to be most effective for the future. And that is a very highly efficient way of generating great discoveries, which is used in the best places around the world. A central feature of how the Crick will operate is that we provide a career stage for young researchers, 10 to 12 years, so quite a long period, long enough to tackle big problems and for their careers to be developed. But after that time, they have to look elsewhere for jobs. If it's in the UK, we provide a pipeline. If they go back to the countries they came from or somewhere else internationally, then we are establishing a network across the world. So it's a win-win in both situations. But what it means is that the Institute constantly rejuvenates the people and the programs that we do so that we can keep up to date with all advances as they're coming about throughout the world. So it sort of acts as a place where new advances can be developed based on what's going on around the world and can then be played out elsewhere in the country or elsewhere if they want to go to another country. I think the sorts of ambitious and bold people we will want to attract will be sufficiently impressed by a 10 or 12 year contract, especially since we provide core support for a research group. And those sorts of people I think we will attract. Maybe some we won't attract if they're very, very concerned about their long-term career, but the sort of confident, bold people will actually think, I will succeed in this period, and I don't think I worry about what's going to happen 12 years from now. Every 5 years the Institute will be reviewed by our main funders. These are the Medical Research Council, Cancer Research UK, the Wellcome. These provide the core funding and they will review what we have done in the previous 5 years, and if we are successful then they will fund us for the next 5 years. So it's very important that we're successful. The key point is this though, to be successful we have to attract the best people and equip them in the best possible way so that they can actually succeed. And that's how we will operate. A crucial aspect of science and its relationship with society is that it's the creation of new knowledge through research that actually drives the advances in society. It's the way in which we can get sustainable economic growth, increases in that growth. It's the way we can improve the quality of lives of individuals. It's the way we can improve their health. We need those basic discoveries. The way we're thinking of doing it is the most efficient way to generate that sort of knowledge by giving freedom to those individuals. But it has to be combined with something else, which we will also do. We have to capture those discoveries that are relevant for issues to do with economic growth or issues to do with health and make sure they're properly exploited. So, for example, my chief operating officer worked in the pharmaceutical industry in Pfizer for 25 years, and he is driving a program of capturing and translation that will occur outside the Crick, but involve our discoveries and the people who made those discoveries. So it's giving freedom to individuals to do discovery research of the highest quality and then capturing it very efficiently when it can be used for translation. I strongly think that Brexit is a major mistake for British science, and that view is shared by the vast majority of British scientists. So around 90% think that Brexit is a mistake. The problems we have are that we lose European Union funding, we lose around 500 million euros a year, and that has to be found from somewhere else, and so the British science budget has got to increase that much. We lose easy access to the networks that connect European scientists. We make it more bureaucratic to attract good scientists from the European Union, and in the Crick Institute over 50% of our highly trained scientists come from the European Union, so it's a major problem for us. And there's also the rather nasty xenophobic aspect to this, of Britain turning its back on Europe and the rest of the world. All of this has to be corrected. All of it is correctable, but I'd rather we didn't have to do it. And I will do my best to actually correct all of that so that we can still remain a science powerhouse as we have been. We're good at science, but it does need a lot of effort to do it. I'm not sure I'm terribly surprised by any particular advances. People talk a lot about, for example, CRISPR-Cas being able to precisely engineer genomes. We have in some organisms like yeast I work on, we've done this for nearly 40 years. So this is not actually quite so surprising. It's great that we can now do it in more complicated organisms like humans and mice and so on, or even strange ones like an octopus or a worm, for example. But that isn't perhaps such a surprise, but it does open up new avenues of research, which is very important. I think actually, and it's outside biomedicine, I'm really fascinated by what is dark matter and what is dark energy. I find it really almost amusing that physicists have only been studying a small percentage of reality, and that there's about a great chunk of dark matter and dark energy and we have no idea what it is. So that's what has really surprised me. I think it's very important for scientists not to be so narrow that they're not aware of what is going on around them. We do have to have a sharp focus, that's very important, but we are informed by being aware of other things which are more peripheral to our major activities. And those peripheral sciences can be even outside your area in physics or chemistry or computation, and that informs the research that you do. And that is also a key part of the Crick Institute, which is much more open and multidisciplinary than most biomedical research institutes. It keeps the mind alive, it keeps the mind able to make connections that it cannot easily make if it is too focused. The Crick Institute is linked to the three main universities in London, Imperial College, University College and King's College, and there I've introduced the concept of satellite groups that can come from any laboratory or research activity in those three universities, such as mathematicians, such as engineers or such as chemists, and they can put 1, 2 or 3 individuals into the Crick to pursue multidisciplinary activities. We can put Crick researchers in their departments too. It's a new way of promoting multidisciplinary research. I think the relationship between science and the rest of society is a really key part of having an effective research endeavour. The society, the public, have to be comfortable with scientific research. They can only become comfortable if they are informed and are aware of scientists and how they work. If we lock ourselves away in some ivory tower, that is never going to happen. So those that are good at talking to the media and talking to the public who are scientists really should be encouraged to do it. Not everybody is good at doing it, and those that aren't, we shouldn't persuade to do it. But those that are, we really should encourage them to talk. It's also important to recognise that the pursuit of science is really a high endeavour. It's one which is highly principled. The pursuit of knowledge, pursuit of the truth, is something we don't emphasise quite enough in research. We're not doing research for our careers or simply to get another paper. We are doing research to find out the truth. And once we get that fixed in our mind, then that will automatically improve the quality of work that is done and the, if you like, the ethical behaviour. Because what is the point in making up research? It's completely, research results, it's completely counter to the pursuit of truth. So I would focus not on ethics and regulation in a formal sense, but transmitting the idea that research is the pursuit of truth and it's a high calling. I think it's very important that research leaders are close to research activity. In my case, I'm very deeply embedded. I have a research laboratory, I have 4 students, I have 2 or 3 other researchers. I spend probably 1/3 or even more of my working week directly talking to my lab colleagues. And what that means is that I'm familiar with everything that's going on, and when something isn't working in the Institute, I find out about it immediately, and it doesn't have to go through 3 reports every time being made less of a problem. I know exactly what the issues are straight away. So it helps me run the institution as well. Yes, so my research is still with yeast. It's a simple model system. I can be very effective working with it. I'm interested in the control of reproduction, the so-called cell cycle. I'm interested in problems like cell shape and position in cells. Very basic problems, but ones that are important to understand if we're going to have real insight into how living things work and therefore what goes wrong in disease.